Hello, everyone, and good afternoon, good morning, or good evening to all of you, depending on where you're dialing in from. Thank you for joining us today for today's webinar on turning your product vision into reality. My name is Matt Simons, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. Before we begin, just a couple of housekeeping items. We are planning about 40 minutes of sort of prepared Q&A with our panelists today. There will be time at the end for live questions from the audience. Your phones are muted, so if you have questions, please submit them using the Q&A feature of the WebEx software that you're logged in via. You can direct your questions to all panelists. Send them in anytime during the webinar when they strike you. We will queue them up and try to take as many as possible when we get to the conclusion of the prepared remarks. Our webinar today is brought to you courtesy of ThoughtWorks. ThoughtWorks is a global services and product firm that specializes in helping organizations create software-based solutions. The systems that we partner with our clients to design and build are really core to their business and really frequently help them gain or sustain a competitive advantage. We provide, from a services perspective, innovative, high-impact consulting and software delivery services. Our product division, ThoughtWorks Studios, builds user-centric software tools that help teams, and especially distributed teams, collaborate more effortlessly, deliver higher quality systems faster. Our 1,600 consultants work out of 22 offices in 7 countries. Our clients range from small startups to multinational corporations, with the common thread being that ThoughtWorks is often asked to work on really business-critical solutions that differentiate our clients in the marketplace. We've been delivering these complex enterprise applications for more than 18 years. If you go next slide, please. We have 2 speakers in addition to myself today. Again, my name is Matt Simons. I have the privilege of moderating today. In my day job, I'm the head of our distributed and offshore services offering, so I spend my time working with customers who want to take advantage of ThoughtWorks delivery center capabilities in India and China and Brazil. We're fortunate to have 2 quite interesting guests joining us today, and I will ask each of them to introduce themselves in turn. Cameron, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. Good morning or good evening, everybody. I'm Cameron Percy. I'm 26, and I'm one of the co-founders of Avenase, which is the company I think we're going to be talking about today. So my background is actually not in computer science. I'm a social scientist by training, so particularly empirical social science. And outside of Avenase, I sort of have 2 primary applications, which are aviation and public policy. So I've done pilots since I was 12, and actually an early introduction to GPS and other electronic positioning technologies has come in helpful with the founding of our company, which should become clear momentarily. And I also study public finance a lot, and particularly the current fiscal issues facing California, and become active recently on the issue of public employee pensions.
Thanks, Cameron. Xiao?
Sure. This is Xiao. I worked with Elvis for about 12 years. 30 days, I split my time between Chicago and London, moved back to China in about 2005. In the past 5 years, been focusing on growing China business, build a capability here, and deliver many projects for customers in other regions, US, UK, Australia, as well as China as well.
Thank you, Xiao. Xiao is dialed in from Beijing this morning, where it's quite early, so I'll have to excuse a little bit of gravel in his voice. We'll get Xiao warmed up really quick. Okay, to set the stage for today, I'd invite everyone to sort of think back to the go-go days of 1999, 2001, when the dot-com bubble was inflating and then subsequently deflating. I'm sure most of our audience was aware and maybe even got directly caught up in the rise and fall of the tech sector at that time. Well, after a number of years of relative silence, tech seems to be stirring again. We've seen lots of innovative, new internet-based business models that are attracting attention and investment, and even some of them making money. We've seen an explosion of mobile services as mobile hardware and software innovation in that space kind of gathers steam. We're seeing we at ThoughtWorks, we're seeing more and more startups coming to us and people with new ideas that are looking to get something out to market. And so in some ways, a lot of the system, the context seems very, very familiar from those days. But in some ways, it also seems very different. Maybe it's because the bubble years are still pretty recent in everyone's memory and no one wants to repeat those mistakes. Maybe it's because the economy is in a fragile state and the recovery is still gathering steam. Maybe it's because capital is harder to come by. But whatever the reason, and probably it's all those reasons, entrepreneurs and organizations are thinking very differently this time about how they build and launch their new products. There's movements like the lean startup machine that are showing good results based on incremental evolution versus massive upfront investment and big product development. Successful entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs, they're actively counseling others who would follow in their shoes to avoid taking on too much debt early or giving away too much of the company early, and instead try to bootstrap it up with their resources that they can marshal on a more limited basis. And here at ThoughtWorks, we've seen a real interest from people launching new products in supporting those ventures and ideas with an offshore development model from day one. So today, Cameron and Xiao are going to share their experiences working together over the past year and a half. I hope that this will help you understand whether the model that was successful for them or some aspects of it might be successful and effective for you in your particular situation. So, Cameron, you are the co-founder of a company called Avinace. Could you tell us a little bit more about the idea behind your current venture?
Sure. So Avinace is all about helping businesses make educated decisions about where in the physical world to place their assets. So when we talk about assets, we're primarily interested in retail locations and signage advertising. In our mind, a major missing input is in these sorts of decisions is where the general public goes, not just resides. So our methodology is based on a series of issued U.S. and foreign patents, of which I was an early co-inventor. And our product vision is to take location data from the smartphones of a cooperating group of individuals that represent the general population, and then draw conclusions about who passes and who's exposed to any potential physical asset, again, think like a storefront or a billboard, in any major metropolitan area. So the users of our product really will be the parties in these sorts of real asset transactions. So our target users are real estate agents, brokers, buyers and sellers of property. And I guess in the advertising world, they would likewise be agents, advertisers, and media owners. So all these people are potential clients, and whenever a transaction is happening, we see an opportunity to make money. So I guess the benefits of using our product go to identifying underpricing or overpricing the physical assets and making intelligent and defendable choices. So we hope the people that use our product should be able to reduce their risk of mistakes and identify real asset opportunities that will help them drive future revenues for their companies. And also, I guess, because real asset transactions involve multiple parties, using our product should stand to make some parties more informed than other parties. And that's a dynamic we think that will drive more people to use it.
Excellent. Thank you, Cameron. And let's talk about what you were looking to do when you reached out to engage ThoughtWorks. What was your immediate objective of looking for a delivery partner?
Sure. So taking a step back, I guess, our patents were temporarily under license to a large multinational firm for a number of years. But we sort of saw an opportunity to grow our business by adopting a new suite of technology and actually moving in a different direction than our multinational partner was driving us. So I've sort of been involved with this project for a long time, even going back to when I was in school. And I've been fortunate to get to work with a bunch of people smarter than I have to improve our methodology and expand its potential applications. So in November 2009, we were facing a couple of technical challenges, and we were really a company of social scientists and hardware engineers. We didn't have the skill sets we needed to develop code. So we were actually pretty wary of hiring engineers in-house, which would be sort of the traditional Silicon Valley approach, because we really were self-funded at that point, and we didn't want to put ourselves in a position of having to lay people off if the project went through a lull. But we also wanted to be as capital efficient as possible at the same time, so taking less money and us experiencing less dilution. So we really didn't want to hire one or two individuals who might not turn out to have the diverse set of skills we were going to need, and therefore we wanted to consider outside developers. My introduction to ThoughtWorks was actually sort of unusual. It came through a family friend who happened to be a well-known and early Microsoft executive. And one of his subsequent companies had actually been a ThoughtWorks client. He had developed a deep respect for ThoughtWorks vendor who can sort of push the envelope technically and also consistently deliver projects on time.
Interesting. Okay. Why did you choose to go offshore, and why China?
Yeah, going offshore is sort of an interesting choice, especially for a young company. Before we actually went offshore, we did a short onshore planning session actually with a senior ThoughtWorks developer and a business analyst in San Francisco, where we sort of identified the scope of the project and some of the core costs and technical challenges. But then all of the rest of the planning and development was then subsequently done in Beijing. We chose, I guess, China specifically for a number of reasons. I traveled very extensively in Asia and sort of already had a personal comfort, familiarity with the region. And to anybody who hasn't been with it, the core of Beijing is very much a first world city. It's very easy for business travel. I live in Palo Alto, so actually the flight from San Francisco is nonstop. And because Beijing is so far north, it's actually one of the shorter trans-Pacific flights. And I found actually staying connected to business in the U.S. from Beijing was actually pretty easy. The time zones sort of work out such that early morning in China is actually mid-afternoon on the West Coast. So I could get up and communicate with colleagues in the States and then actually go join the engineering team for the day at ThoughtWorks. Actually sort of free of stateside distractions. I thought it was vaguely therapeutic. I actually found time changes pretty helpful. So I think the value proposition of working offshore for us really was compelling from a business standpoint. We had a very limited set of resources, and we knew our project was going to run for a limited period of time. So it was really easy to sort of justify the additional complication and expensive travel costs in light of the lower cost of developers and also the very sort of focused, short nature of our projects. We also, I guess, lastly wanted to actually try an offshore engagement. It's something we sort of expected to want to do at some point in the future. We have patents in a variety of countries, and we want to see actually moving our product internationally, so having international focus is just fine as far as I was concerned. And I think the ability to scale engineering teams offshore is pretty well established. So knowing that we had that capacity and that capability, I think sort of helped us speak confidently about our ability to execute. So trying an offshore engagement actually had a lot of pluses for us.
Excellent. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that the advantage of being in an out-of-sync time zone from where you usually are. We work with a lot of customers that discover they have a lot more time for deeper engagements when they're not running from email to email and meeting to meeting, since they're awake when they're usually asleep. It's a momentary pleasure. Once people figure out where you are, they track you down and you get caught up. But as long as it's only a few weeks here and there, you get a moment of clear. That's great.
Yeah, it's fun. I actually miss it while I'm here and back in the States.
You're always welcome back in China. Xiao, can you tell us, what was your first impression working with Cameron, and were there any challenges in the early days?
Sure. Well, the very first impression was when we got on the call was a very short notice to talk about this idea and understand the context. And after about 15 minutes, I was fascinated about this business idea, the location awareness type of services. It's on mobile platform, and there's a well thought out roadmap. There's very exciting, interesting ideas, and we'll have a lot of people who are passionate about software delivery, passionate about technology. I knew that this will be a very interesting product to develop for very challenging, but also very interesting to our people. So I described our software delivery philosophy and our approach. We hire best people. We aim for frequent releases. We believe in the agile process. And I decided that for offshore, the importance of communication and building trust between stakeholders and delivery teams is even more important. I felt like at the time Cameron got the idea and encouraged the idea very quickly. And we talked about how to start this. I mentioned that a co-location co-locating session is very critical, this type of engagement. And he on the phone just reacted right away. I'm happy to come to China right away. So to me, it's a great sign that we're going to have a good chance to build a close relationship and be successful in delivery.
Great. Xiao, I know we've talked before that Avanade is not really a typical kind of an engagement in ThoughtWorks' portfolio, and so tell us a little bit how it fits into your vision of the sort of work that your group provides.
Sure. So we have about 130 people in Beijing. We do a lot of projects with both large and small companies from all over the world. Our preference is actually not just the size and the length of the project. We actually do enjoy working on solving challenging technical problems. So working with Cameron is not a uncommon type of engagement for us, actually.
Okay, great. So you met and talked to Cameron and got excited about his vision. You had the benefit of hearing that, I guess, during the initial engagement process. How did you ensure that the development team that Cameron was going to get to work with shared the vision and shared your enthusiasm for it?
So first of all, they got quite excited by the idea itself, but then there's a lot of unknowns, a lot of concerns, a lot of questions. I mentioned earlier this co-located inception phase is designed to build a shared vision, shared understanding among all team members. This is especially important for a distributed team, because when it's not co-located, it's even more difficult for people to understand each other, for people to understand the business goals and how the software creates value exactly, and what's the persona of the user, how they intend to use the system. So we invited Cameron to come over to spend a week to work with the team, and then I think that greatly helped to start the process, get everyone on the same page, and also building a trusting relationship with each other.
Great. What sorts of exercises did, during that inception process, the co-located inception that you mentioned, what sort of exercises did the team work through to kind of flesh out requirements and build that shared vision?
So typically it's a series of workshops between the business user or stakeholder with the development team. They focus on a few areas. One is understanding like I mentioned earlier, what's the business vision, how the software creates value, what's the business process, to map out the business process, understand the general requirements. Second area is to focus on a persona of potential users. This is really to understand, to focus on from a user-centric design perspective, understand how exactly a typical user is going to use the system, what's the user's journey, and what's their high point and low point, what's their pain going through such a system. And also to quickly get to a point where the team feels can come up with a high-level design of the software from a technical perspective that fits the business requirement, as well as catering for the experience, the targeted user experience. And after all these exercises, there's a quick planning process as well to try to optimize across between scope, cost, and time, trying to release something as quick as possible, as early as possible, come up with a minimum marketable feature so that it can be turned into a product instead of having to wait a long time to get a releasable target. And one thing I just want to mention that to better understand the user experience design, we also go through a rapid prototyping exercise to trying to using both low-fi and high-fi prototyping skills to come up with artifacts to capture this type of understanding, so that everyone has a shared vision.
Okay. Go ahead.
Sorry, and if I might sort of jump in and extend this a little bit, I guess. Because I was a social scientist in the room, not the computer scientist, so actually Xiao and his team, and actually my team that I ended up working with, did a very nice job of sort of leading me through learning Agile best practices. And because these timelines were so short, it was very important for all of us to sort of be in sync, I guess, with the process. So, I mean, I found it very helpful that, for instance, we started every morning actually with a stand-up meeting to discuss what we had built and accomplished the previous day and what we expected to build and accomplish that day. I actually ended up usually hijacking these meetings slightly, sort of by bringing in new issues that had come from conferring with colleagues stateside and also sort of my own thinking. But I found my team was actually always very receptive and sort of ready to push the boundaries a bit on what we were trying to do and adapt the plan to accommodate change. But I think at the same time, we had the resources available to us to constrain the process a bit. So we had, for instance, a business analyst on my team for both our engagements named Young-sung, who sort of helped organize the process. And we all actually ended up relying on him to sort of guide me through the process of adapting technical requirements to accommodate new thinking, and also adapting sort of the new thinking that just kept flowing to fit into the realm of what was reasonable and prudent, sort of given our limited time and resources. So I think the Agile process and what the Butler team Beijing was able to sort of, the structure that they were able to snap onto what we were accomplishing is what really let us get so much done so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the big knocks against trying to do product development with a distributed or offshore team is that exactly that. Very often, especially during the early stage, the early stage releases of the beginning of the product, there's a lot of volatility in requirements. It evolves very quickly, and the ideas are flowing even faster than you can implement them. And so I think the fact that you were able to go and be there face to face during that high idea flow phase, as it were, really helped make it a viable option for you. And we recommend that to other folks that are looking for something similar. You talk about, Cameron, such a short time. How long were you actually out there during this sort of inception and kickoff phase, and what was actually delivered? What did you accomplish from a hard deliverables perspective during that time?
Sure. So my company's actually had 3 discrete engagements with ours. The first was I think it was sort of 2 or 3 days. It was very short, quick start exercise I mentioned at the beginning that actually happened onshore in San Francisco in November 2009. But then really the work happened in 2 follow-on projects in May and November of 2010. Each of those projects were about 3 weeks each. And we developed our prototype and then subsequently expanded and improved upon it during the second engagement. So I think actually doing multiple engagements, although it was challenging from a resource standpoint, doing multiple engagements actually sort of gave us the chance to play with what we had built over the course of the summer and early fall of last year, and to come up with the areas and sort of the ways that we felt it could be improved. So I actually like the multiple engagement framework. But as you know, each of the engagements was actually quite short. It was 3 weeks and then followed on by another 3 weeks.
Xiao, was that something you were able to manage as a person trying to run a delivery center, these sort of stop and start sort of short engagements?
Yes, it's actually quite difficult for us to manage that internally. But like I said earlier, the people are really passionate about this, and we have a poly-skilled team who when we do pair programming, we will rotate people through different areas of the code base. So there's no one person who only knows a small area of the code base. So everyone is aware of the overall context. Give us a chance to build a new team around 1 or 2 team members when it comes to they get put on different things and couldn't come back in time to join the second phase of the work when they get started in shorter notice. So that's one advantage. Second is we are our development environment is all heavily leverage virtualization. So most of our servers and including development environments are using virtual machines. So VMware, they get it's easy to quickly put together a development environment, and you can easily freeze or mothball it, put it somewhere, and once you want to restart it, it's just it's really easy to reinstall everything and continue to work as if it was done just moments ago.
Very good. Cameron, can you describe your experience of going and working in a vendor partner's office in an offshore location, in this case, in your case, Beijing? Would you recommend doing so to other entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs?
Sure. So I'm happy to, let me talk a little bit first, I guess, about the experience itself. All the offices in Beijing are in a brand new, actually very, very nice building close to the central business areas. What I found sort of most interesting, I think, about every Thoughtworks office that I've been in so far is that they're very egalitarian and very open plan. So actually the managers from MD, Shao included, on down actually sit out at large project tables with all the other engineers. They don't actually have private offices. So there's sort of a constant presence around the office, and I really like the positive atmosphere of collaboration and I think openness that encouraged. So actually getting to know Shao and the other managers, I think, proved to be useful when we were planning our second engagement. It meant that we already had personal relationships with the people in Beijing who could help us make it happen. I'm happy to talk a little bit about sort of my takeaways as an entrepreneur from this. It might also fit in nicer maybe toward the end as we're starting to wrap up. It really is an experience I would encourage for a number of reasons, but why don't I touch on them a little bit later?
Sure, absolutely. Yep. So what's the plan? You've had a number of smaller engagements. How do you see what you've accomplished so far, helping you to transition to development and full-scale product delivery once your business begins to turn the corner and take off?
So where we stand right now is that we have this fully functioning alpha, and we've so far used it to show our investors that we have an ability to execute, and we've also taken it around and showed it to a ton of clients. And what it does is it makes our value proposition, I think, much more tangible and much more immediate to people. So the project in and of itself proves to be a really great value. The sort of the next steps, I think, involve actually bringing a little more talent on in-house on our side, and then actually integrating with Thoughtworks. And we would like to do a follow-on engagement that would be much broader and would take all the ideas, everything we've sort of learned by doing the alpha, and really blow it out into something that is a fully functioning product. Right now what we have is sort of each piece of the product is working, but they're somewhat discrete. So the next step is really to combine this and turn it into something that is truly self-service for our end users.
Excellent. Okay. And I guess sort of last question, and then we'll get into sort of final thoughts and recommendations. But this one also for Cameron. We talked a little bit about the volatility of product development, especially in the early phase as well. You solved that partially by being in person with the team in Beijing. Over time, the volatility tends to decrease, but it's still there. One of the big risks of distributed development is, how do you keep it sync? How do you stay on the same page as your ideas and thinking and needs evolve? How do you keep your team on the same page when you're not sitting there face to face with them and you can't be spending the summer in Beijing? From your experiences thus far, how did that work, and how confident do you feel that you'd be able to stay on the same page with your Thoughtworks team?
Sure. For both of our Beijing engagements, I was there for a large part of it, but actually not all of it. So the second engagement, I was actually only on the ground in Beijing for about half of it. So it left us a good sort of week and a half where I wasn't physically there with the team. And what we found worked really nicely was actually daily video conferences. And we would do these in the evening on the West Coast, which ended up being morning in Beijing. And we were able to effectively do the same and impose the same sort of structure we had and same process that we were using while I was actually there with the team. So we turned these video conferences into stand-up meetings, which then inevitably I ended up hijacking a little bit and turning into sort of broader discussions. But we were actually able to make changes to the code sometimes in real time. Sometimes these video conferences dragged out for a couple hours, but it was as if I was there and actually sort of working with the team, and I was able to see immediate changes that they made to the code. It also gave me actually a chance to sort of use the product and use the things that they were developing not in real time, amusingly, after in the off hours, where actually new thoughts might come to mind about how we would want to change things that we then jumped into as soon as we started the video conferences. So I think actually the sort of the iterative and the very procedural aspects of Agile worked pretty well for us. And being remote actually wasn't a huge challenge. So I think actually having had time with the team made it, in person made it just that much easier when we did eventually end up going remote.
Absolutely. Yeah, the richness, I think, and levels of trust that allow you to have richer and more open conversations are something that you reap the benefits of that time you spent together when you weren't together anymore.
Yeah, I actually also should throw in that we used an Agile project tracker, a web-based one, so we were able to actually prioritize stories and sort of keep everybody on the same page and on track also just when we weren't there remotely. And I think having that discipline that started while we were in person, that then just continued when we, were not actually physically together, made the process and the transition, I think, pretty seamless.
Excellent. Okay. Final thoughts. Cameron, do you have any recommendations for people who are listening today, who are thinking about how to get their product to market?
Sure. I really should say that it's sort of a pleasure for me to be able to be here and sort of talk about my experience with this. Getting to work with ThoughtWorks over the last year and a half really has been a highlight for me. I really think they're a diligent and dedicated technology partner. I was very impressed that they were flexible enough to sort of adapt to the more freewheeling sort of aspects of an entrepreneurial project, while also sort of keeping us grounded in best practices. You asked earlier about recommendations that would I recommend that other entrepreneurs consider something like this, and I really would, and actually I think perhaps mostly for one less obvious reason. I think entrepreneurs, particularly young ones, I could say, that's come 26, have really convinced themselves, and if they're fortunate, they've convinced other people that they have good ideas. But turning good ideas into a business will always sort of involve working with the team and managing a project. And it really is about managing people and working with people. And I honestly think that I got much more out of the experience as an entrepreneur than just functioning code. I wouldn't ever want my team to think of themselves as guinea pigs or want them to think that I thought of them as guinea pigs. But I really will be honest that I think I learned a ton by working with them and sort of getting to use both Agile best practices and also sort of taking an entrepreneurial idea and imposing a structure on it helped me actually sort of further improve my own management skills. And as an entrepreneur, this being my first entrepreneurial project, this was actually something I found was a huge personal benefit to me. And it's something I would recommend for other people. So I do have to note that my team's patience with me definitely did not go unnoticed on my end. I think coming out of these engagements, we learned a lot about our own product and our own value proposition. And it was important for us to demonstrate that we could move quickly and distill our business ideas into robust code. I think we intend to continue developing our products iteratively, and we look forward to building our own technical team in-house and sort of continuing to engage with ThoughtWorks as we need to pivot or expand our capabilities in large steps. I think the one thing I'd modify about our experience, this is the last sort of learning I've got, is that if I could do it again, I'd actually want more technical capabilities on our own end in-house. So ThoughtWorks teams develop code really quickly. And I really wish that I had come to Beijing with more technical resources on our side in order to capture their work and sort of maintain it and tweak it as they developed it. So I'm a really social scientist by training, and I think I look forward to future engagements where the skill sets on our side and on ThoughtWorks side are a little bit more parity. I never want to think that anything we did held anybody back, and I think the engagements were incredibly successful, but that's one thing I'd like to change going forward. So I really have to say, I guess in summary, that the ThoughtWorks developers did a very admirable job of teaching me Agile best practices and sort of helping a very young company sort of learn the right ways to approach code development. I very fondly will remember my experiences in Beijing, also on a personal level, and I got to know Xiao as well as most of the rest of the people in the office quite well. And I really do look forward to the next time that I get to return.
Thanks, Cameron. Xiao, any final thoughts?
Sure. Thanks, Cameron. And I think Cameron made it sound very easy, this overall process. We, thought workers, myself, definitely enjoy this engagement, working on this product. It's a massive pleasure. It's a great pleasure to work with Cameron on this. I just, we touched upon technology, process, people. I just want to emphasize one more thing to say, even Agile process is not a silver bullet. It doesn't address all the problems. At the end of the day, software delivery is a social activity. I do believe that to deliver good software, especially with distributed team, trying to be on time with less cost, it takes a lot of communication, and more importantly, it takes a lot of trust from both parties. I think Cameron's success is he came over, built personal relationship with every team member, and that trusting relationship makes all the other communication issues a lot more easier in that subsequent working relationship. So I do believe that is a key contributor. The personality, that type of trust, is a key contributor to the success of this product.
Thanks, Xiao. Thanks, Cameron. Thank you both for your comments today. I do think it's very clear from this story and others that you've probably heard or we could share that there's a clear and a viable alternative to the kind of classic two guys in a garage model that's been the image of the startup culture for the past 30 or 40 years. If you find the right partner and you're willing to take a slightly unconventional path, I think it's entirely possible to bootstrap your product to market on a limited budget and do so even while you're building a pretty strategic foundation for a future global delivery capability that can scale with your business. And you can do all that without giving away huge chunks of the company or to employees or investors or taking on a lot of debt. So I think we're excited about this kind of work, and judging from the interest in this particular session today, others are as well. We are now going to move on to the Q&A portion of our webinar. And so please, if you have questions,